Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing The Invisible Man, or woman, question mark? I don't know. The possibilities are endless. Let's get to that in a little bit. First up, joining me, looks like she just robbed a hipster bank. Please welcome Cece to the show.
I mean, I guess I'll take that introduction over my Hotlanta introduction.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know.
In Hotlanta, Georgia. I mean, I like the glasses, Cece, but we have the same one, so.
Oh, yes, we
Yeah.
do. Are yours blue also?
Oh, no, I can't see the blue. Oh, do you have like the
yeah.
half blue in the bottom? Or are they all
Yes,
blue?
I have the half blue in the bottom.
Nice.
Because I'm a hipster, apparently.
I had a pair that were half clear in the bottom.
Ah,
But
see.
no longer. There you go.
There
I
you
love
go.
it. I love it. Next up on the show, back. He's not dead, people. Contrary to rumors, he's still alive. Please welcome Casey.
Hello.
Like you see, you even sound great, Casey.
Yeah. Look, they let me keep my stone.
Wait, are you for real?
No.
Oh,
And he's stoned.
I thought maybe that was a special little kidney stone carrier they get. Like I've never had
It's a
one.
case.
You a carrier
Yeah.
for it?
No, that's just a Death Star, but that's what it felt like.
It's a very small satin pillow inside of
Yeah,
there.
just next up
I'm
on the
keeping it for the
show.
kidney stone fairy.
Next up on the show, that booming baritone you hear is BloodyGoodHorror.com's very own editor. Please welcome Andy to the show.
Hi, Eric. What do you get from the kidney stone fairy, Casey?
Like a strongly worded letter on what not to eat.
Yeah.
I
You
thought that you would get like oxycodone or something.
Oh, they didn't give me
I
shit
got
this time.
hydrocodone from mine.
Oh, very nice. Last up tonight, joining us, he is from Canada. He's a lawyer. He's a Canadian lawyer. Please welcome Adam to the show.
Hello, it's the other baritone of the podcast.
Yeah.
Do
Hi.
Canadians need lawyers? I thought you were all so nice. There wasn't any crime.
Well, we all just agree. That's mostly my
Oh,
job.
okay.
Is because sometimes people want to agree more with other people, so you have to.
Please don't.
Yeah,
Official.
Yeah,
Do you just go to court and say he's sorry?
pretty much. I mean, if you agree too much, then there's a merger. We actually have a law called the it's the Apologies Act. Now, a lot of people laugh about it. It was kind of designed by doctors because naturally, if you're a doctor and you mess up, you say, I'm sorry that happened to you. And then people go, he admitted it or she admitted it. So instead, there's this Apologies Act that says if you apologize after an injury or personal injury, etc., it doesn't count as admission of your guilt.
Huh.
Doesn't count.
You like that, people? Lots more lawyering to come here tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit. Adam, also the spokesperson for the little town they shot the lighthouse in. Who knew? You're like their official town spokesperson.
Not even from there.
Oh yeah, congratulations on your new position. You're now the head of tourism.
He's
for
actually
that town.
mayor of that rock they shot on. It's really incredible.
He's our very own Leslie Knope.
It's a real rag. That's a real rags to riches story. Anyway, I have no idea where I'm going with this. It doesn't matter. We're here tonight to talk about The Invisible Man, so let's take a quick break and do just that.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
Cece,
Yes.
you know, all these years we've been doing the word of the day, you still, when I say your name, you just look pensive.
I'm just channeling John, so I
Yeah.
thought that like I needed to, get into character. I needed to like.
Yeah, but I'm not
you
going to
know.
call you racist, so you're probably safe.
Thank you.
I'm actually
Uh,
glad you wore the glasses tonight, because the glasses make you look like a person who knows like a lot of words.
Cool. So I don't every day when I don't wear glasses.
It's just a fact. Glasses make everybody look like they know
Oh, okay.
words. That's all.
So while I'm robbing liquor stores or convenience stores, I at least look smart. Does that
Well,
mean I'll get away with it?
You gotta,
I'm just gonna hang back here while Eric talks about Cece's appearance.
you
more.
gotta stick it to the man, right?
Yes.
You know?
I see.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then I look dumb right now.
Yeah. You guys look so stupid. You don't even
I don't
know
know.
it.
So stupid.
You don't know it because you can't see.
Dummies.
Cece, you're from Georgia.
Yes.
They still shoot The Walking Dead down there?
Ooh, yes.
They still shooting in that 1 mile stretch of woods down there?
There's a lot of miles of woods in Georgia. I mean, I still have friends who work on it. I'm
Really?
pretty sure. So yeah, I don't know what season they're on though, but yes, I believe they are still shooting it. I think they're winding down
I
now.
think it's like 25.
It's the Crawling Dead now.
Yeah.
It is.
No, apparently now it's the people wearing the face of the dead, based on what I've seen from the promos. So
Whispers.
yeah, it's weird. Hey, Cece.
Yes.
The older I get, the less cohesive these intros go, but it doesn't matter. Please bring us the word of the day.
So the word of the day is somatic, which is an adjective coming from late 18th century, and before that it is Greek, from basically soma, meaning body. It is often relating to the body, especially as distinct from the mind, and it relates to our dear movie because, you know, when you're being gaslit, your symptoms tend to turn into more physical symptoms, and then people don't believe that your mental situation is a real situation.
The gaslighting in this movie was so intense, it was giving me physical symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I 100% only know the word somatic because of that Cypress Hill song.
Psychosomatic.
Yeah. There you go. Nice.
You know what? You gotta appreciate that. Is that, you know, how you also learned the word like nookie, that whole era of music?
Yep.
Probably, yes.
Yes.
Sort of related. I had never heard the word dookie until that Green Day album came out.
What? Dude, there's a really big DJ in Atlanta called Dookie Platters, and he DJ'd our wedding.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, did
He's
he-
actually, it's so funny because he's actually a historic preservationalist too. So.
Bold move hiring a guy
So
named
he keeps
Dookie.
his Dookie platters.
Like,
Yeah.
bold move hiring a guy named Dookie Platters at an event where you serve people food.
And it was barbecue.
Yeah. Nice.
That sounds like a bad Doogie Howser parody.
You know, we do what we can.
He's a 4-year-old DJ.
Dookie Platters. Dookie Platters RN. I like it. Adam, would you like to synopsize this movie with no warning?
Oh, sure.
Wait, no.
Okay.
Don't stop typing. Just tell me what this movie's about. You can do it.
So this is a movie about a man and he invisible. No. No, this is a movie in which the character Cecilia, played by Elizabeth Moss, is living with her boyfriend Adrian, who is abusive. She then decides in the middle of the night, because she's worried about getting pregnant, to escape. She flees and gets with her sister to take her away. He chases her, and then the movie is her dealing with partially letting go of his abuse and the situations that follows. And then also, it turns out that Adrian might not be dead because weird going on start happening to her. And we as the audience know that there is a man that's probably invisible, but the rest of the cast doesn't.
Huh. Are we to
And I won't
understand?
go
Are we
any
to
further
understand?
than that.
Are we to understand that there is spooky behavior happening in this movie?
Oh my god, there is paranormal activity. Actually, it's all normal, but
Yeah.
the guy's invisible.
So we should kind of, before we get into this, warn that just give a little bit of a blanket spoiler warning. It is a new release, so I like to warn people. We won't. I don't know. We might go into like the ending, but that'll be in another 30 minutes or whatever. You know what I mean? So we'll give you another warning before we get real buck wild with the spoilers. But obviously, we're going to be talking about the plot. So here's your heads up, Andy. Why don't you kick us off? What did you think of this movie?
Oh, I would love to. So it was funny going into this. I think about the Invisible Man as like one of the quote unquote universal monster like archetypes that was popular in the 30s. And it's funny because it's not really a character that I feel like a lot of people develop an attachment to inherently because it is a non-visual character. So it's very, I had no expectations going into this. I honestly haven't seen Upgrade, Leigh Whannell's like latest film. But sitting there as the opening credits were going, you immediately kind of know that you're in the hands of somebody who's like taking care with what they're doing. Like even the opening title is like a very, very like slow, deliberate reveal, and the opening sequence we can get into later. You just can tell that everything is being very carefully thought out. Um, Ultimately, the first act is probably the thing that was the most jarring for me. I couldn't quite get on board with some of the rhythmic changes, but once we kind of like pick up speed in the second act, I was all in on this. I think somebody described it as a quite a ride, like in our email conversation, and it truly is that. Like, I don't think I've actually like looked at the people I saw it with in a movie theater in like a shock surprise more often than I have this movie, and I really dug that about it.
Yes, I had many shocked, surprise reactions to no one because I was by myself. Cece, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in the same camp. I was actually really excited about it coming out. And I was getting a little discouraged from the negativity that I was, that was starting to permeate Twitter and Facebook. But I was super stoked. I saw it on a lunch break. So you would have thought that I wouldn't have been as invested, but it is definitely a thoroughly like harrowing story in general, and then on top of it to be from the universal realm is just kind of, I don't know, like I thought it was a really clever and really smart way to handle that. And I thought all of the actors gave phenomenal performances. I'm with Andy, like I I saw it with my friend and she and I both were like so tense the entire movie and constantly being like, oh my god, like I can't believe this is like as intense as it was. So yeah, it was fun.
Casey.
I ended up being right along with Andy and Cece. I love this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. To change it up some, I really bought into the writing of this movie. It was really well written. I loved how they took the original Invisible Man formula that's classic. A lot of people are familiar with it, and modernized it, and still came up with a good movie that counts as the Invisible Man and doesn't feel like it's taken anything away from the original or anything like that. So that was really awesome. The tension in this was insane. You, like Cece is saying, you get so emotionally invested too, like with Elizabeth Moss, what's going on. This is the first movie in a long time that's made me actually go, whoa, out loud in the middle of a movie. So that was cool. It was a ride and it was a lot of fun to the end. My only beef with it would be, I don't know if it needed to be 2 hours. They probably could have shaved it down to maybe, I would say 145, but I don't know what they'd shave out, like 150. I think they would probably have been tighter and a lot better, but that's
Casey,
kind of...
Some people on this podcast might say no movie should be 2 hours.
I agree. I should say I understand that, but like Andy was saying, I think my problems come with that first act with some of those changes. There's some of that felt a little slow, took a little bit time to get going. It didn't ruin it for me by any means. Once it got rolling, it was rolling. I think they could have got rolling a little tiny bit quicker, and I would have been even happier.
Adam.
Well, I'm going to join the crew. I actually really like this film. I saw it with Andrew, fellow BGHer. So we were doing a lot of like Loki whispers. I was not excited going into the movie. I was worried that just watching the trailer, how much of the film was kind of given away. But it turns out nothing in the third act really made it to the trailer, which was awesome. A very important scare we're going to talk about that everybody seems to be very up on wasn't in the trailer at all. Apparently, it sounds like Blum was trying to get part of the shot of that in the trailer, and Leigh Whannell was like, no, do not show anything. I mean,
just to jump in real quick, isn't that the second time he's tried to do that? Like,
well, so
dingus.
Get Out was Blumhouse, right?
Yeah.
If I
Yes.
recall, there was a whole thing about how Blum wanted the twist in the trailer, and he fought him tooth and nail. And then
Yeah.
because I remember seeing an interview with Blum afterwards where he was like, "I was 100% wrong," and he was. I think he kills the tension of that movie.
Mhm. I think a lot of the marketing idea is if you see action scenes, you're going to get more norm people. It's harder to have a very restrained
Yeah.
trailer. It's not like the 80s anymore where you can like have a Die Hard trailer where you don't see the building and it's just like a cop who did a thing in a building.
See,
You
I
know,
think
you
those
weren't
trailers
doing
are.
it.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think those trailers are so effective.
Oh, they're amazing, and they really make you want to go see the movie.
Yeah.
I think that if you're trying to get people to see a movie, like I remember, the Cabin in the Woods trailer having the elevator, like that kind of thing, where I was like, oh my God, they gave away everything, but then I was still shocked because they didn't. So I think they did a really good job, arguably, with the trailer and how it worked out because I really enjoyed the film. I thought the action was very effective, and clearly he had taken, what he'd done in Upgrade and applied it for spacing and how you visualize the scene and where characters are. Especially something involving a ladder was very good. I didn't like some of the sound effect choices, but we're gonna get into that in a sec. But yeah, I think overall very effective film, very compelling story. When I felt myself getting pulled out by weird, stupid little things, I was just pulled back in by the characters and how they were interacting. So I think that's something that, I have really valued in the film.
Yeah, this movie's really good. It's a ride, and I have other stuff to say. Like, there's stuff. I think it's a little easier to pick up like nitpicky threads afterwards because when it's going, it's like so intense, and there's something to be said about that. Like sometimes movies are such good thrill rides that you're willing to overlook a little bit of that stuff. Doesn't mean it's not there, and we can certainly talk about it. But I'm also like, I'm not gonna act like a cultured horror fan who's like has all these thoughts in the original Invisible Man because I've never seen it. I haven't seen most of that original like Universal stuff. I would actually venture to say that like people our age, their most familiar Invisible Man thing is probably the Chevy Chase movie. I mean, it has to be, right? Like that thing, like I feel like that was one of those cable staples when we were kids.
Maybe Hollow Man and
It's gotta be
then
Hollow
Hollow Man,
Man,
right?
I've seen.
Chevy
No, I
Chase.
mean, I've
Hollow
seen.
Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Hollow Man, I've seen, and I've seen a lot
I
of.
don't think I remembered the Chevy Chase one.
Are you kidding me? It was like a seminal '80s comedy.
I feel like Joe watches that on a weekly basis.
I mean, it's basically like it's the story, but it's a comedy instead of a great, But and I've seen Hollow Man, which is kind of decent. I don't know for that era of cinema, it was okay. I this thing is incredibly intense. I think that Moss gives a really fantastic performance. She has proven over her last few projects, like her range is actually really incredible. There are a handful of scenes in this movie that are like you won't forget them. You know what I mean? There are scenes in this movie that I know in 10 months when we're wrapping up 2020, like we're going to be talking about. And one of them is the opening of this movie. They throw you right into it. And what's kind of brilliant is like one of my biggest pet peeves is, and I know Schnorrs talks about this a lot too, but like when a movie sort of tells instead of showing, it is like kind of a filmmaking class the first 10 minutes in the amount of information you can impart to somebody with almost no dialogue.
Mhm.
With this whole scene, we understand that she's in an abusive relationship. We understand that he's rich, that he's some kind of like scientist dude because she walks through the lab, right? They drop this thread about her anxiety and her medication that comes into play later. She gets in the car with her sister. It becomes just from a very minimal interaction with them, it becomes clear that like her family doesn't really know what she's been going through, and that sets up the whole movie.
She likes dogs too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, the dog, poor doggo.
I think that I'm just to jump in real quick. Like I think that the beginning of this movie, you're absolutely right. Like I know afterwards the pacing, like after this whole scene, the pacing gets kind of weird for a minute, but the intensity of the beginning of the movie, especially, I would say, especially from a viewpoint of anyone who's been in a similar type of relationship or situation, like that whole, I mean, it felt like it was 45 minutes, but it probably wasn't longer than 3 or 4 minutes. But like those minutes are so intense and so over the top that like over the top in emotion that it kind of you kind of need that breather right
Oh,
thereafter.
you totally
And
do. Yeah.
that the way that that's handled is so impressive.
Yeah. This movie is like, it was difficult for me to watch a lot of it. Obviously, a different perspective than like Elizabeth Moss's, right? But when it comes to these things that deal with like gaslighting, I had this job where I had to have a lot of interaction on a daily basis with like a full-on narcissist gaslighter who was in a position of power over me, and it literally consumed my life for like a year and a half. And the stress like became a health problem for me. And so like I just get these like, when I see a story like this unfolding, and I'm sure it's even more intense for somebody who's been in like a romantic relationship dealing with these kinds of things, it's like I almost have trouble watching it. So I found the second act of this movie a little brutal because like it's just like the script just methodically shitting on Elizabeth Moss is the only way I can describe it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like because it's done a really great job of setting up, here's what she has. Here's what she has in her life. And okay, now that's gone, and now that thing's gone, and now that's gone, and here's her hope is gone. And then finally we get this moment where this restaurant scene that we won't spoil right away, but like that to me is going to be the enduring moment from this movie because it is so shocking. It is balls to the wall in a way that I think is surprising. I think you're in, you kind of calibrate yourself when you're in a movie as to what you can expect based on what they're showing you. And to me, that was like, oh, we're riding at an 7 or an 8 of like the intensity scale. And then it's like 12. And it's just like out of nowhere, really brilliantly done from like a, composition and editing standpoint. And it's like, you could tell there was a lot of time spent thinking of unique ways to play with this invisible stuff, to kind of what Andy was saying about playing with framing and letting the audience fill things in their mind. And then all that stuff is great. And then we lead up to the scene where we don't have to fill anything in with our mind because it's very explicit. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I do really quickly. I do think that the more I think about the plot, I think it's like it gets a little too cutesy for me with like how complicated they make things. I think like there's a lot with the husband and the brother and like what's happening and who's where, and like I think it gets too complicated because I'm thinking about it now and I'm actually not entirely sure what happened on some level. Like I understand it more or less, but what the movie exactly is telling me went down at the end, I'm not entirely sure. I also think that this movie has a little bit of what I would call Apatow syndrome, which is where, sorry, I gotta drink water, guys. Stand by.
Well, while you're doing that, I do want to
real
go back
quick.
to the endings. I definitely want to talk about it. But
Yeah, 100%. But like this movie has Apatow syndrome, which to me is where like you finish your movie, you've got this great 3-act structure, everything ties together, and then you go, actually, wait, there's this other thread I want to have 20 minutes on. Like that's like every Judd Apatow comedy, and I feel like I'm a little torn on the final kind of denouement, to use a very Andy word,
I'm
right?
with Andy. Like, I want to talk about this.
Well, let's wait because
I
there's a
think we
lot of
need to
other.
save it
Let's
to the
wait
end,
because
then.
there's a
No,
lot
no,
of
that's
other.
fine,
Can
Yeah.
we do some of the middle stuff?
No, but
really quickly?
it's just but like I just think like I understand the reasoning for this scene, but it screws the pace up for me a little bit.
Sure.
Go ahead, Adam.
I
Let's-
definitely can. I can definitely understand what you mean by that. And like, I think like to kind of like, if we could jump back to the beginning a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's do
I
it.
think one of the things I really appreciated about it. I mean, like, to kind of talk about the film from a more thematic perspective, it's a film that very much is about like one specific thing, and it's about a character dealing with the trauma of her abuse and her ongoing her ongoing fight to decide whether or not she is going to slip back into that relationship, which I think the film's choice to kind of like fake his death, or of that character's choice to fake his death, is actually like, it's a bit contrived. But the more I was sitting and thinking about it, the more I was like, this makes her, like, her fight for her freedom, and like both mental freedom and her physical freedom, like so much more fraught.
Tougher
Because
to
at that
tougher to
point, there's
overcome.
like, go ahead.
Tougher to overcome, just because like there's no way anybody would believe you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess like one of the key characters that we didn't really talk about at the beginning, after she escapes, she's picked up by her sister. She's staying with a friend played by Aldous Hodge, and his daughter played by Storm Reed. And there's a part of what really kind of like threw me for a loop with the pacing and my comments earlier, essentially was like the relationship between like that family and Elizabeth Moss. And Cece, you made like a really good point like over email, that kind of like reframes those sequences a little bit better for me. And you can pick up on this, but like specifically it's about like her relationship with like that platonic family, and like how they are giving her something that's like not romanticized, but it's like a friendship and a love that like she hasn't felt in a long time. And sitting with that now, I found that really powerful. I mean, like, how did you guys like respond to like her relationship with that family?
I thought it was really sweet. I mean, you have to think, right, from his point of view, he's taking in somebody that he just went through an extremely messed up thing. And so,
and he's a cop. So like,
yeah.
I mean, just to jump in real quick, like, I mean, there is statistical evidence that like in abusive relationships, whether they're mental, physical, or whatever level they are, the most dangerous aspect is when that person is leaving that partner. So as a cop, he already knows that. And I mean, like you're saying, he's taking in someone who's coming from a situation that these like next couple of days, months, like the foreseeable future are super, super dicey, not only for her, but for him. And like Andy brought up, like I think that we're so used to seeing relationships like Elizabeth Moss's character running from like this, evil husband, and like she's gonna run into the arms of like her best friend who's always loved her. Well, that's not always how it is, and that's not how it should always be.
And they don't even seem to know each other that well, right? Like, isn't he really doing a favor?
They seem like he seems like he's better friends with her sister.
I mean,
her.
I think
that's the way I took it.
Not having any romantic stuff between the two of them is one of the shrewdest and best character decisions they make in the movie, because I think because I had said over email, like, you make this movie in the 90s and 1,000% there's a relationship between the two of them, because it was just kind of the only way that film screenwriters knew how to deal with that kind of dynamic, right? But I think it makes it a lot sweeter that they don't do that, and it's really just like, I mean, for me, I actually had no problem with like from a plot standpoint. I think a little of the it's just a little heavy-handed in the very beginning, and some of the line delivery is a little like corny. Like that was my only issue. I almost felt like it was about to bust into an 80s montage of like, we're together again and we're a family.
Well, but I think like I mean, I'm with you, like, and I think that's where like we probably all felt like the pacing is a little weird, but I think that that's supposed to kind of relate more to how she doesn't know how to act in a functioning, healthy family dynamic. Like she's running from, I love that the setup of this movie is that she's super privileged, she's super wealthy, she has all of the things in the world that you could ask for, and yet she's in extreme danger. So for her to go from like this one extreme to like a more normal, like balanced situation, I like that they're so healthy and she's not, so that there's another step removed. Like she's still isolated even within that like healthy unit.
And the husband's also controlled every aspect of her life.
Oh yeah.
So that's another layer of like not really knowing what to do with yourself.
And there's a moment too where like she does get that relief after it's revealed that, quote, Adrian has supposedly killed himself, and then they have that moment where she, very sweetly buys a ladder for them, and then she like has this playful interaction that completely kind of sells the point you're getting at, Cece, where it's like she's trying so hard to like make it normal, but she's still like, I'm like still so fraught over everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I completely that reframes the scene for me, and I definitely get what you're getting at.
And
it's nice too. Sorry, Adam,
no, please go.
it's nice too because it's all completely believable, especially once they tell you he's a cop. Cops have training for that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and for dealing with victims and stuff like that. So none of it felt stretched out or out of place or weird.
I was just gonna say I really like early on, like little things, like the fact she whites out the camera because she's still paranoid that someone might be watching her. The fact she goes to the mail, like it takes her so long to get to the mailbox because it's just leaving the safety and security, and he might follow me back to the house. It's like continued and sustained.
Yeah.
And like she had set very clear boundaries with the house, and I mean, I really like the Aldous Hodge character later on as he moves from, being this level of very like kind to her and like kind of silly and playful and like supportive, and then just how quickly he turns when he realizes that there's any threat to his daughter.
Yeah.
And that was possibly my favorite scene in the movie, was just like, you need to do you because I am looking after my daughter's security right now, and you need to like stay here. And then he feels guilty that he left her alone, so it had so many layers.
There's a lot. Yeah, it's very nuanced, and like that scene is really devastating. I mean, it's another very it's not as like shocking. I mean, it is shocking, I guess, but it's like the action part of it is shocking, but then also just like they're the last thing she has left. And to think that she now has nothing, and then I think right after that is a scene where she's literally laying in the ground, like just in like grief, and it's like
so this is actually a good segue into when we like first get into our first quote unquote action sequence. As Eric, you're mentioning, like there's that moment where she's like laying on the ground, like screaming, crying because she basically like loses her sister because Adrian has essentially like stolen her identity and like severed ties with her sister. And Storm Reed's character, whose name I can't remember, tries to comfort her, but is hit by an invisible force. And then eventually the family leaves the house. And then Cecilia is essentially left there to kind of fend for herself. And she's kind of like, all right, let's fucking do this. Like, she's like trying to trap it out a little bit, figure out how she's going to find this person. And a pretty well extended sequence of her kind of using practical intuition and also like using like just thinking about what this person who's supposedly invisible might have around them. And before we leave Aldous Hodge behind, we do need to give a formal salute for his triceps. They were
the man is a god,
so attractive, and he is such a badass at everything he's been
but he's also sensitive, like you feel like he can really listen
like,
to your problems.
It's like you just want to be held by those.
I gotta say, Andy, like I want to talk about like the first scene, the breakfast scene, a little bit. But to your point, because while it's in my head, so in this scene where they actually fight for the first time, and she throws paint on him, it's an awesome reveal, and you finally kind of see,
that shit's on.
Yeah,
like something is happening,
and like. Yeah, I really kind of love the effect. There's an interesting kind of like retro feel to the way they did it, but also like kind of future techy. I do have a physics complaint though, because they set something up with the paint that I feel like is not followed through on later in the movie when he's in the rain.
Yeah.
I should see rain bouncing off that thing, and you don't. He's still fully invisible except for the suit going like blue.
Like one or two short scenes.
Well, no, they show it like blinking in and out because it's damaged, but they're not. Well, I should see like, like I should see like his form. There was a part
where you saw the rain kind of taking shape around him. It was quick and it was subtle, but it was there.
I don't know, man.
Once you get into the physics world, like shadows don't work. You get into the fact that like he's shorting in and out with the cameras later. Like you can't go down the anything about the suit route. It just it is all convenience to the plot.
But what I've read though, right? And this is like one of the, to me, the kind of most interesting like sociological aspects of this film is that you have this movie written in when, Andy, the 30s or something, the original Invisible Man?
Well, it was 1933.
33. So like at that point you're talking magic basically, right? I mean like it's I think it's a potion or something he takes, but you're basically talking about magic, right?
Serum.
Which is like it's basically, I mean, like most of the Invisible Man like iterations are all like some kind of potion or serum.
Right.
Yeah.
We now live in a world, and really it's been a while since they've been talking about this, but this idea that you could potentially build something that could bend light that would render even large objects invisible. This is like near future sci-fi at this point, right?
Oh yeah.
And in certain, maybe they're, you know, maybe they're taking a little farther than we might see in our lifetimes, but like this is something that is like reasonably within our grasp. There is something, I guess, even like it doesn't, the Invisible Man thing, like I think the movie's great. The concept doesn't do much for me. Like I don't get excited. Oh, they're making Invisible Man. Holy shit. But there is something
Little man
interestingly,
Stan.
there are now, because this is potentially attainable, there are so many interesting human and ethical questions, right? Like there is something weirdly intriguing about the thought of like, I could be invisible. What would I do? And almost none of your answers are things you want to say out loud, right? Because like
Well, the other
by
thing,
its nature, being invisible, I think makes your brain go to like weird monkey brain places, right? Because like there's nothing
Well,
you're
what's
up
so-
to when you're
what's so-
invisible that's on the level, I guess is my point.
Sure. I mean, like, and the other thing too that is so interesting about making it a suit in this case is that, you know, with the potion serum component, it's always kind of like a mad scientist invention has eventually like affected their moral compass or like their
Yeah.
perception of right
It
and
drives
wrong.
them insane.
Right. Whereas like this is like this person is a sociopath and they are making a conscious decision to do this,
Right.
which I think inflects a lot of the trauma and like the lasting impact of this film
Yeah.
for me personally.
Well,
And
and,
it's
like,
a known
don't-
sociopath that you cannot track.
Yeah, like don't they say something too, like that I mean, I know that she says he's in like leading in the world of optics, but like is there something that she said about defense? Or I don't know. I just know that like they talk about how she's an architect, and then I thought that that's what he was working with, which as a defense contractor is even more creepy.
There
Yeah.
was a tie-in. I believe the company that's associated with the optics is the same company that designed the like chip system in Upgrade.
Ah,
Yeah,
Oh.
so he like
Gotcha.
share universe himself.
yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, it's interesting how both of these movies deal with similar sort of like near
Yeah.
future sci-fi tech, right?
That's what's great about. That's what I love about the modernization of this, though. Exactly what you guys are talking about. The originals were always a serum, drove them insane. Something went bad in the lab, they turned invisible, yada yada. This one, like Andy said, it's a sociopath. He's got a suit. But what makes it even better, then, if you spend any time like on the History Channel or clicking around on Reddit or something like that, most of us have probably seen some of those shows where they're talking about future tech or stuff that's happening with military tech and stuff like that, especially on the History Channel. And you know that they're working on stuff like that, trying to perfect it. So
Yeah.
it's believable.
Now, Adam, here's a thought. Let's
Yes.
say, see, they don't really get into how the suit works. I don't really understand the point of the cameras, whatever. But if let's say it was bending light, would
Mhm.
that not negate a shadow?
Mm,
If you're
it
bending
may
light
or
around
may
an
not.
object, you know what I mean? Like this.
You see, the issue is if you're bending the light around yourself. Now we're talking about photons. I.
You're
Well, and
wait,
I thought
you're
that I thought it
but-
was more like it's a type of projection type, like that
Yeah.
it's that's
Taking
why there's
pictures of everything
cameras, yeah,
around.
because it's basically taking the picture around it and reversing it. So yes, technically there is a shadow,
do
but
they
you are not
explain that in
seeing
the
it because
movie,
it's
though?
being projected.
They did not.
okay.
Yeah,
No,
I think
but,
you're.
like-
I think you're.
If I mean that's like if you watch the History Channel and listen to what they're
Exactly.
building, that's how they tell you they built it. So
Bloody Good Horror brought to you by the History Channel.
right.
Ancient aliens.
Usually, when you're dealing with something that's on land, the issue is like where the light is refracting from. So you're gonna get like weird optics. So
Right.
nothing's gonna properly match up, is my understanding.
Predator
versus
style.
like, yeah, if you're
Yeah.
flying a giant plane, you can reflect everything within the air, and you can like it's easier because you have a bigger palette. We're not gonna go down this road though.
I
Again,
also like
he's walking around the attic and he makes no sound.
Right.
All of
Yeah.
that is
Like-
Well, I was
ignore
gonna say, like,
everything.
like
oh, yeah.
how loud must that fucking suit have been? It's all like glass
Well,
and metal and shit and
that's-
like
That's
rubber.
also it. Like, so the beginning of the movie, when she's in the basement trying to leave, that's how she knows something's there because she keeps hearing this buzzing. So you have like. I thought they were gonna play that up that she was like that it was gonna be this low frequency that like she had gotten so used to like being able to pinpoint, but they like never bring that up.
Well, but
that was the whole point of how she saw it in the beginning.
it's funny. I think all these things are really valid, but also like to what we were saying in the beginning, it's a testament to how much of a ride the film is because
Right.
it really is like a cinematic like just like haunted house, right? It's just like it's like you get in and you strap yourself in, it just goes, and like I think that I think also the strength and the nuance of the character stuff going on is really the driving force of it, right? Like, because I didn't
Yeah.
really thought of this, Andy, but what you're saying is like in those originals, it's like, you know, the mad scientist, the act of turning invisible sort of overwhelms with power, right? And that kind of, whereas in here, it's like this is just a bad person who
Well,
then is
I
enabled
think
to
it's
be
just a
even worse
microcosm.
because of the technology. But
But
like,
it's a, but I mean, basically, like this is just a very this is a very pointed situation of like this is how these things happen, and like basically people who are working on stuff like this have the ability to be absorbed by the thought of, like you said, I mean, the thought of being invisible. The first thing you think about doing are things that you shouldn't be doing, and I mean, he just happened to find himself in a situation where he was like,
right.
oh well, I'm gonna use this
But
tech that I've been working on.
I guess my point is
Yeah.
that he's a bad guy before he has this like obvious, like you don't just like overnight turn into a sociopath, right? Like he's not
Yeah.
an abusive.
Yeah,
feel
but
like-
like aren't most successful people like they're kind of on the scale?
Totally, but what I'm saying, what I'm saying is like I think it's what the movie does well is that they've really
Sure.
set up this entire character story that has nothing to do with the suit, and then the suit is sort of this thing that drops in and introduces like more chaos into the story,
Yeah.
right?
Which
Because it's
is
not
a
a
good
magic
time.
serum.
Yeah, which is a good time to introduce his brother, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, I could talk for days about my problems with the Tom character.
Do you have problems
Adam,
with his lawyering?
Adam, could you go over your issues with the representation of this lawyery figure?
Well, I've got an article coming up
Yes.
that I'll tell you about at the end of the episode, so stay tuned. But oh my God, did he get every part of the law wrong? And I cringed through every scene with him. Like the other thing that kind of bothered me about the film is there are 4 people in the whole movie. Like they only like he's there every scene. He somehow gets into a mental health facility and tries to get her to sign something, and I'm like, she's not mentally competent right now, and also she has a right to have her lawyer present if you're another lawyer.
Dude, yeah,
But-
you know what? I know the only things I know about law are things you've said on this show, Adam. But then there did seem to be, especially in the scene later when they're in the hospital, I'm like, she's like drugged up and been declared mentally insane, and you're just throwing this thing in her face for her to sign. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not going to hold up in court.
They let the cop whose daughter just got assaulted and was involved in that and then left, and then a murder occurred. They let him investigate her alone in an interrogation room. This is not due process. All of this case would be
Okay,
thrown out.
here's
The
what I-
brother
here's
nothing on her.
Here's what I will say about the brother. I think that the guy, the acting from this guy is really good, and what I liked was you don't know where he's at. And I
Yeah.
find that really interesting. And the movie does a great job of kind of pulling you back and forth on him. And one of
Mhm.
the like best little subtle acting scenes in the movie is when she goes back maybe a second time and she's like, I know something's going on, blah, blah, blah. And he has what's like actually in the context of that moment of the film, like his facade breaks a little bit. This is what you're seeing anyway, right? And like,
Mhm.
he's like, look, he controlled me my whole life. He controlled you. Don't let him, like, he's gone. Like, don't let him do this to you beyond the grave. And it's like, God, his acting in that scene is actually really
Oh,
good.
yeah.
And Elizabeth Moss is like, I don't know, she's weirdly, it works on her for a second, right? Like, or at least, not that she doesn't believe what she saw, but he realizes, like, the only way I'm going to diffuse the situation is to kind of connect with her on a human level. I just love, in a movie of, like, crazy scenes, that was a little subtle thing that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Hell, it
like-
worked on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I didn't read the article that Adam's talking about, but I thought that the way that they play the brother and Elizabeth Moss off of each other is actually really interesting because
Yeah.
they're the 2 people in this movie that are the closest to Adrian, and they have this very like give and take. Like, I mean, doesn't he even tell her like, I was so happy like when he married you because I knew he would
Mhm.
leave me alone? And that's devastating to hear. And it's also devastating to know that the person that you thought like cared about you essentially was glad that you were taking like that you were taking their place for this situation. So like the back and forth of which if we get to talk about later, like at the end, the back and forth of knowing like where the brother actually is through the whole movie, like it doesn't, I have a very like set idea about it, but ultimately I don't think it matters because Adrian's controlling him, and that's the main point. Like the main point is he's still a pawn, and he was still doing Adrian's bidding.
Yeah, they're a very, very good foil for each other because you
Yeah.
get to see like how Adrian's abuse is affecting like Moss, and then like how he's using very similar methods to essentially like control his
Mhm.
brother, like you're saying. And yeah, like that sequence that Eric is talking about where like he just like kind of breaks a little bit.
Yeah.
It's enough to like get you to kind of care about him.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then when he goes back to kind of being you know, that like salacious creep, it's like, oh my god, like this dude is like so far gone. He's like
Oh, yeah.
beyond salvation.
Yeah,
at
I mean,
that
I think
point.
there's a lot of, now that I really sit down and think about it and talk about it with you guys, like there's just a lot of things in this movie that we say this a lot, but this is just a great time to be a genre fan. Like this
Mhm.
kind of subtle character storytelling was not happening 15, 20 years ago. Like it just wasn't. You might get occasional exceptions like the original Candyman, right, which is now being remade, or stuff that was done a little more subtly, but like God, there's just like a lot of character nuance in here that you wouldn't necessarily expect for a
And it's
movie
wild
called.
that this was like $7 million too. Like if I don't, I mean, like
Well,
like you guys
that's
said,
that's
there's only like
that's Blum's
what's up?
game. That's Blum's game, right?
Yeah, it's
Andy,
very
Mhm.
true.
I have a
Very
point
true.
on that. So the actor that we were just talking about that played Tom is Australian,
Mhm.
and most of the cast that weren't the main cast are Australian. And it is 100% a testament to the fact they can stretch a budget because Leigh Whannell decided he wanted to film it in Australia. He got the crews that are able to do those cheap horror. Like I'm not sure if it's the same people that did what's his name's film, The Gift.
Raimi?
I'm trying to remember, but yeah, the Australian crews that are extremely effective at pushing a dollar, and
Yeah.
they were
Mhm.
able to like deliver this movie that looks like, I'm saying some of the best effects I've seen in a bit for how much money they spent on them.
It
Yeah,
looks so
7
good.
million's pretty
Yeah.
damn impressive.
Adam, are you talking
Yeah.
about the more recent Gift from a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I
Um,
immediately go to the Sam Raimi one.
Which sidebar, it just made me think about if anybody is really wanting to like check out more Elizabeth Moss stuff, her in the China Doll series of under or what is it, Top
The
of the
Top
Lake?
of the Lake. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like I guess it's Top of the Lake, and then the next season is China Girl Top of the Lake. Like she is phenomenal in those series or that series too.
Well, to add on to that sidebar, I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, you need to watch it. But if you want to see more of Elizabeth Moss being miserable and making you feel bad for her, watch The Handmaid's Tale. She's
Oh
great.
well, that too.
Yeah, and any Alex Ross Perry movie she's in. Yeah.
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 She's on a roll.
But it's, I mean, that's the
Um,
interesting thing about her is like she's also done a bunch of comedies that she's really funny in.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
Mad Men, she was totally different in. But she's so effective in this and selling this movie too, with the way they've set it up, with the abuse and the relationship and stuff like that. And I don't think every actress out there will be able to pull it off as well as she does. She
No,
breaks
and, like,
down so good, and it's so
Yeah.
continual, and she's just in it.
The physicality that she can possess, that's, I mean, it's so nuanced. And for her, I mean, like, so much of it is just in her face, and I know that a lot of it's makeup, but like the majority of the movie, like she's wearing a sweatshirt and like, I mean, not even yoga pants, like these like weird baggy windbreaker pants, and it's so perfect because it's so realistic, and it's
Yeah.
she's not paying attention to those things, and like she's not really taking care of herself because, I mean, she's literally like falling apart. So she like, there's just so many things that it's so gut wrenching that it is very
And
immersive.
And even like when she cleans up and goes on that job interview and they get her out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
house and stuff and they talk her into going on that job interview, she's uncomfortable from the moment she
I just
comes
wanted
on
to hug
scene.
her. Like
Yeah.
oh my god,
Yeah.
the whole
Dude.
time I was sitting there like this. Like I had my hands over my head. I
The
was like, God,
whole-
just
Especially
take
when
me
the-
over.
Oh my god!
The whole
Especially when the
second-
person interviewing her like says that like, oh, do all the pretty girls go to?
Dude,
Oh,
I was
really?
like,
Uh,
I'm
Like-
gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up.
The whole second act, and this was like it's not an issue, but it was my issue with it. It's like it's just gut punch after gut
Yeah.
punch, and like every time, and then they keep like stringing you along, and they'll give you like a little glimmer of hope, and then just yank it away from you, and you're like, oh, dude, this is fucking brutal.
So
I
speaking- oh, yeah.
oh sorry, just it's just a funny sidebar, but if you think of it, so I saw this in one of those new like IMAX theaters that are like the like wholly immersive, and I like y'all can laugh at me if you want. I really hope it was part of the movie because there was literally only like 2 other people in this theater besides me and my friend, and there were several times. First of all, the noise was so loud that when the dog barked, she and I both jumped up out of our seat because we thought there was a dog in the theater, and we were like, okay, like we just need to chill out. And I don't really jump at stuff like that, so I was like, okay, like I get it. And then multiple times through the movie, I kept smelling so much cologne that it was making me physically sick, and I was like, if they are pumping cologne into this movie because it's an immersive like experience, I don't know that I'm gonna be able
So
to
she's
come
like,
to
is this
movies anymore.
is this 5D? What's happening right now?
I was like, I can't. I don't know what's
Just
happening.
witnessing
I don't-
Elizabeth Moss like just ultimate tragedy in like 3-story tall video screen. You know?
Seriously, I do not think that I would put that past them because if you look at that house and you look at who this person is, that dude smell fancy.
CC,
Right.
yeah.
And I
CC,
mean, this wasn't just like this wasn't gas station cologne. This shit
Yeah.
was like, and it was like the stuff that like lingers, so you know it's like super thick. And I was like, okay,
ugh.
there's no one else in here. Like, what is this?
It's got
PSA,
that thick cologne.
PSA. Nobody wants to smell your
Oh.
cologne. I also had an overpowering cologne in my theater, CC. What the hell, people?
Did you? Are you for
Yes.
real?
The-
Okay,
also, the
maybe-
couple next to me was like, they I'm in these leather seats and they're pairs of 2s. They put their divider up and they're just like draped on each other. I'm like, all right, guys, we get it. Okay, you fuck. All
In the
right, let's
Invisible Man,
relax.
like that's not a cuddle movie. I'd be
Yeah.
like, fuck you. I don't ever want to be with a partner again.
Also, this like so the lady was on my side and she must have been like 6 foot tall. So like these were not 2 people that can like comfortably like literally she was just like in my space. Her like legs. It was just like guys, come on.
She was in my space. Excuse me, you're in my space. This is a movie about needing your space.
I feel like you're gaslighting me right now. I need you to get out of my space, okay?
Wow.
Can I talk about 2 of the setups that I really appreciate?
No, you can
And,
only talk about one.
Okay, fine. So one of the first ones is obviously at the beginning of the movie when she's chased to the car and there's the punch through the window, and then when they did the she calls an Uber randomly because she's being chased, she believes, and the guy does what has to be like a 15-point turn. Like he just will not turn correctly, and I'm like, they're gaining on you. Just turn around.
Yeah, that was actually
But
pretty funny.
she's like, oh god, that was very. And then I was like, did he get up on the car? What's happening?
That's what I was
Um,
worried about. I was like, but
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of weird Ubers, so the 15-point turn didn't bother me, but the fact that like he just shows up out of nowhere, I was like, no, don't get in that car.
No.
The
And
dad
then-
and me, to be honest with you, and he's like, it's a long way to this whatever coast you're going to. Then she asks him to stay. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how much is this going to cost you?
He's rich.
She's got
remember?
100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other one that's exceptional, and this I guess takes us to the scare number 1 that everybody enjoys. The fact that while they're doing the voiceover into the restaurant, she says, "Let's go to a crowded place, like a public place," and everybody knows you're in a public place, so you're safe. Except for the fact that everybody let their guard down then, and then bang.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was so
Scene is
good.
so
The-
good.
I had this lingering thing in the back of my head because I was like, why didn't you just take the suit to go show the police? Because you had the suit and you didn't take it and you hid it. But I know that later it's necessary.
Well, because she couldn't
but-
get out with it. I don't think. I think she
Well,
feared. I think she feared that she wasn't going to be able to leave with it, and that so this
Yeah.
way she could hide because that was her hiding spot. He didn't know where that was
Mhm.
because that's where she kept her like go bag, right? So she figured. I think it was just a panic brain of like, I need to at least get this so he can't find it, so that I can
Yeah.
then come back to it.
That's what I had
Yeah.
to assume, but I
The-
was like, because yeah, that whole scene was a
But,
little
like,
yeah,
you know,
when she
so-
like lightly pushes him over.
But also in the opening scene, we see they make a big deal out of her knowing how to turn off all of his security cameras. We don't see any of that when she takes the suit, right? So like, I mean, obviously he's dead, so maybe everything was shut off. But it's just like,
well,
Her
they
code
do
still
show
works.
it. They do kind of show it for a second, and I think that you're right. Like when she's downstairs and she takes right before she takes the suit, when she's realizing like this is the noise I was hearing, like let me like investigate. She goes to open the door and she uses the wrong code, and she's like, okay, and so she thinks about it for a second, and then she says out loud like, oh, the day we met, and then she does that, and she makes some snide comment like how romantic. So he's already changed everything, and I think she was like, okay, well, I don't know like what's on the like if there's tracking on this or what. So I think that was the whole like let me
Yeah,
hide
I
it
can see
rather
that.
than try to get away with it.
I have just so many. I mean, I don't know. We've been going a while. We got to wrap it up, and I don't necessarily want to because it's a good movie. I think people should see it. I don't want to like just run down the whole ending, but just to say, I have so many questions about the two suits, who was doing what, like what.
Well, okay, well, how about this? To satisfy me and Andy, we'll talk about the ending real quick when we hang up. Off
Okay,
air.
that's fine. You do
Okay.
you do you, Cece.
No, you got to be there.
Oh, okay, deal.
I
I was
wanna
like,
ju-
shit.
I mean, I love Andy and we can talk all the time, but I thought the whole point was you being there.
Okay, that makes sense. So
I was gonna jump back to sorry, Eric,
No,
you
go
were
ahead.
pausing there. So to go back towards the beginning of the movie, and it's something that Andy had brought up in emails and stuff, and Eric kind of mentioned briefly. I thought that the scenes that he set up early on, where there's a wide shot of a whole room, and then like she would physically leave the room, and you're left with this lingering shot, was genius because he did it like probably two times, maybe one time before we get to the big breakfast scene. And the whole time, because he knows the theater's going to be full of people like us, so we're going to be going, oh, what's happening? And you're studying it, and you think you missed it, and then finally there's the subtle one with the switch on the stove. I thought that was genius filmmaking right there. I thought that was really smart.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly simple. It's like fundamental, like primal cinema where it's just like you literally just need an image and like you have set up enough information about what is happening in this world. Like your audience just does everything else. It's like a Kushov effect kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he called it the Invisible Man, so they know you're going to be looking for Invisible Man shit in the background.
My favorite moment is when like a piece of fruit just like real quickly disappears. It's
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great moments like that. It is very Luke in his review at bloodygoodhorror.com mentions like the sort of paranormal activity-esque moments, and I feel like that seed is pretty strong there. Where there are some like literally there's a panning shot that reminded me of PA3 when they've got the camera mounted on the oscillating fan, you know.
Oh, sure. I only know that because we saw that Haunted House Marlon Wayans comedy, and you
Oh.
guys had to explain that shot to
You,
me.
Andy, you should see Paranormal Activity 3. It's pretty good.
It is
Cool.
a good one.
I got a real quick theater story. So I did something I've never done in my life for this
You
movie.
picked up your phone from the pee puddle that it fell into in
No.
the bathroom.
No, I am an expert at avoiding the piss in my theater. No, so Saturday morning, I got up, I bought tickets ahead of time on the Fandango there, and like my Saturdays are pretty busy. I'm watching my kids because my wife is doing stuff, and then we went
Gotta
to
go to Home Depot.
we went to a kid's birthday party, just like all this parent stuff, right? We put the kids down, and then I'm doing work, my wife's doing stuff, whatever. Suddenly 9 o'clock, I go, my wife's like, what? I was like, I was supposed to go to a fucking movie tonight. Literally never done this. Completely 100% forgot. Had to then buy another ticket for Sunday. I paid $30 to see this movie.
But it was worth it.
Yeah, sure. And literally set an alarm on my phone to make sure I went. and then ended up next to this giant lumbering sex couple during the movie. So,
Some people pay extra for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
who
heck.
knows?
One day I'll be part of a lumbering sex couple.
Who knows
We can all
what
only
experience I would have had on Saturday night? But I will say, my theater was like surprisingly packed for a Sunday night. I mean, I don't know what a Sunday night crowd usually looks like. Andy, maybe you have a better idea than me, but it's got to be thinner usually, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it's not bad. The one other like kind of theater going story like I have was we were like there was like probably about 4 other people in the theater with us. I was like a group of 2 friends, and sitting in the seats like 1 row ahead, 1 seat down, there was like another couple, and one of the people in this couple left as soon as the restaurant scene starts.
Oh.
Right? And so this person is gone for the entire restaurant scene up until the point
Why would
Elizabeth
you
Moss
leave?
is put into an institution.
They
So
must have
come-
had to pee so bad to get up during that scene because like that is such a you're just waiting for that.
Well, it's to Adam's like point, right? Like it's like you think you're so safe because it's like public. You think they're gonna reconcile. This person's like, hey, I don't want to see another talking scene. So they leave. And then by the time they get back, she's being dragged through the halls of a mental institution, and like, I'm just
Wait.
watching them talk.
Was
Was
and they
this
have,
was
like,
this both people in the couple?
No, just one of them.
Oh, it would be
So
even
by the
better if it
time
was
this
both, so
person-
then nobody could explain it.
Oh man, they would have like turned around and been like, "Hey,
I'm
what's
out."
going on? What is this?"
Wow.
Oh man, it
That's
was
awesome.
so good though.
That is why the only course of action when it comes to seeing movies is to strictly limit your fluid intake for at least 8 hours before. I drink water differently on movie days than I do on non-movie days, because there is no way I'm peeing in a movie unless I am doubled over in pain. The last
Well, I'm
movie,
glad you don't bring anything into the theater with you. That's all I can.
yeah, I'm trying to remember the last movie I peed during. I might have peed during. Actually, I got.
You don't
okay,
put that in the spreadsheet.
I think I had a half an hour of trailers before this movie, and I am not lying. First of all,
Yeah.
second of
No, I
all,
did
this
too. And they were not like movies that
there was some random
We're-
shit.
yeah.
Yeah. And this movie's too long. So I swear to God I was in the theater for 3 goddamn hours, right? But like the trailers were so long. Finally another one came on. I'm like, well, screw it. I'm going to go take a bonus pee before this movie starts. And I did. And then I came back and there was one more trailer and the movie started.
Yeah,
So
your life
unreal.
bar shot right back up.
Exactly. I recharged. God.
Did the sex couple pee?
No, they did not
At
get
least
up.
not that you saw.
Ew.
They should though. That's how you avoid a UTI, if I'm to understand correctly.
That's true. I
Yeah.
appreciate you preaching that.
Listen,
Health.
I'm all about health. All right, guys. It's going to do it for the. I think at that point in the conversation, it's time to wrap it up. Would you recommend The Invisible Man, Cece?
Yes, 1,000%.
Andy,
Absolutely, see it in a theater.
Casey,
Yes, go now.
Adam Space Lawyer.
Heck yes, but maybe not in IMAX because it was way too loud.
Yes. Terrified.
All right, guys. That is 5 thumbs up from Bloody Good Horror. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Cujo? From the novel by Stephen King, creator of Carrie and The Shining, comes a chilling new tale.
Cujo.
Now, there's a new name for terror. Cujo, directed by Louis Teague. Rated R. Now playing. Check newspapers for a theater near you.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Kinmont from Halloween 4 and Bride of Reanimator, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
Let's see, my first post-review note here is, all caps, forgot to go see Invisible Man, but we already covered that one. So next up, tweet with BGH. This is Sophie's thing. She gets people together. They watch movies. They tweet about them. Sunday, March 15th, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to watch Shark Night 3D. Sharks 3D, Sharky Teeth, Shark DNA, kinds of shark stuff happening. Check that out. Follow Sophie on Twitter. There's also, I believe, a tweet with BGH Twitter account. Check it out.
If you have a 3D TV, please take a picture of it and send it to Eric.
That's right. Is that still a
will
thing?
their Twitter be 3D?
They don't make those anymore, right? 3D TVs?
I don't know. I don't think so. Oh, we actually didn't talk about the fact that this person was so rich, Eric, they didn't have a TV in their house.
That's ultra rich. Yeah.
It probably was in the ceiling and
popped
came
out.
down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That's
That's
a good,
how I
that-
can't even
I,
imagine
I,
that.
It was
my,
invisible.
It was invisible.
You can go to jail.
Yeah. That's a good point, Adam. What other household items would you make invisible if you could?
A
Toilet?
blender, for sure.
Would
Well,
be-
yeah, you didn't see their kitchen, did you?
It would be great to make the toilet invisible because you don't have to look at it.
A day.
And then you just flip the switch, do your business, flip the switch back.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of wives out there that complain about an invisible toilet because they'd say us men have bad aim as it is when we can see it.
Well, I think the problem with an invisible toilet is that you might neglect proper cleaning if you could just turn it off and not look at it.
But what if when it goes into its invisible home, it just gets sanitized and then it comes back up?
That's
Then
smart.
no one has to clean it.
That's smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we solved a real problem here tonight, folks. Good work.
We did find out that the Invisible Man did have a shake in his hand, so he might need someone to clean up after he
Listen, this guy's rich enough to pay somebody to hold it for him, don't you think?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Andy,
Yes.
bloodygoodhorror.com. What do we got going on over
Yeah.
there?
It's a website. We have reviews and special features and all kinds of stuff. Sometimes interviews too. Just as a heads up, we got a review of The Invisible Man from our dear friend Luke we already talked about. Luke's also got a review of a film called The Golden Glove, which sounds real grim. Probably give that a pass unless you're feeling in a masochistic mood. Also coming up, we have a few screeners that we're going to be reviewing. In particular, there's going to be some films that like Sophie and I saw during Panic Film Festival. We have a film called Swallow coming up, as well as a review of Delightful Extraordinary. And our very own Eric reviewed a little ditty from 1981 called Road Games. I'm excited to read your writing again, buddy.
I did. Have you seen Road Games?
I have never seen it, no.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, the
The
reviews...
poster for it's great. I
mean,
do remember the poster.
I am a sucker for like a good 80s like slasher giallo-esque poster. Like the poster certainly grabs you.
Yeah, it's totally smutty.
Yeah, it is of an era for sure, the poster. But it's like a really fascinating movie. It's like Stacy Keach is an American truck driver. First of all, Stacy Keach, right?
Yeah.
Legend. He's an American truck driver working in Australia, which is totally random and not really important to the plot and never explained, but he just drives across the desert of Australia hauling pigs. Like he hauls meat. And there's a serial killer kind of on the loose that you're hearing through news reports. And then he starts seeing like weird stuff in the Australian desert as he's driving down these highways. And he becomes obsessed with sort of like finding out who the killer is. Then at some point he picks up a very young, like just post-Halloween Jamie Lee Curtis, who, much like in The Fog, they force into a real weird like May-September romance angle. To Stacy Keach's credit, though, he turns her down. He says he's too old for her. So I thought that was actually pretty progressive. But it's fun. It's like I think they marketed it. This was my guess, and I get into this in the review, but I think they marketed it as a slasher because of Jamie Lee Curtis. And if you just kind of think of movie trends happening in 1981, but it's much more like a late 70s road trip thriller kind of thing with like a decent amount of hammy comedy stuff coming from like Keach himself.
Okay, right
I
on.
enjoyed it,
Did
though.
you see the remake from a couple of years ago?
No, I didn't even know there was a remake until I was looking up information for like formatting for the review.
Oh, sure. Right on. Well, cool.
I'm sure it was.
Other than...
I'm sure the remake was some grim, joyless affair.
Oh, yeah, naturally. Probably. So along with those, we do have a special Invisible Man release that we're going to be doing, our dear friends Natalie and Adam are combining forces to do a Dark Universe version of In Extremis and Primal Scream. And Adam, what's going on there?
Yeah, so this is the first time that we've got to do a co-article. The idea was that we were each going to do kind of a short piece on the film and then kind of combine them. So Natalie's piece, I won't really speak for her, but she did a really interesting look at the abusive relationship and some of the tactics that the abusive boyfriend used in the film and analyzed it through, the lens of a clinical psychologist. I looked at some of the trust implications because I was thoroughly bothered by the concept that she couldn't inherit because she was mentally incompetent, which is what they say in the trailer. Then they switch it in the movie to because she committed a crime. Then they switch it back when he comes back to jail to if she's mentally incompetent or committed a crime. They keep changing the language without telling her. And I think the most fun part of the whole thing is so he's acting as trustee to the trust. So really he's her lawyer. He's not the brother's lawyer at all. So the fact that he goes, well, you can litigate it. And I'm like, yeah, and you can pay for it because the trust pays for her to litigate that case. So I was like, none of this works. But it was really cool watching the film, and I got into that, and it was a lot of fun to look at the legality of that. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's what I do in my regular job. So.
Yes, that sounds fun.
I love it. I learn so much every time I read these. I love them.
Great. bloodygoodhorror.com. You can check all that stuff out. A couple pieces of fan mail tonight. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. First up, both from Caitlin and Kissimmee. One's for Cece. Thanks to Cece for the recommendation of Orville Peck. I'm hoping one of his songs play when I wind up in a bar scene dancing with a desperate stranger in a Tarantino film.
Listen, Orville Peck's music would go so well in so many movies. And for anyone who doesn't know, which I'm sure if she's just recently discovered him, that he just released a new music video last week, and it is phenomenal and also is very Lynchian, which is also amazing. So
that was actually a lot of fun after that conversation. Cece and Schnars and I got in a G chat where we were sending each other stuff. What was that other band you recommended with the devil lounge music or whatever it was?
Twin Temple.
And what you described this?
It's a satanic doo-wop.
Yes, okay, and every song is it kind of reads like a love song, but they're singing about Satan.
Yeah, it's I want to be evil, or in parentheses, the devil didn't, and it says make me do it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I thought you did like Black Mountain, and Black Mountain is just kind of stonery rock.
Yeah. We also on that show I recommended Magic Sword, and a bunch of people on Slack were checking it out and into it. So I have another recommendation. If you like Magic Sword, 2 more bands I'm very into right now. One is called Power Glove, which I think is just explains itself, and the other is called Dance with the Dead, which is similar 80s synthwave, but it's a little more house dance influenced, but it's all good. Check it out.
Eric, I gotta just commend you on the music. I haven't spoken to you about this. The new music, it's great.
Oh,
You've
thanks,
done a
man.
fantastic job.
Thank you. We were just talking about it pre-show. I got some more stuff for the show cooking up right now, Andy.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
Thanks, buddy. One last question, Adam. This was for you. Adam, I got to give you some propers this week because we get a random question from Caitlin from Kissimmee in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon or something. And she saw something online where somebody was asking, in The Wizard of Oz, is Dorothy liable for the murder, the death, let's call it, at the beginning of the film when her house falls on the one witch? And within an hour, Adam sent back a very detailed, dead-ass serious response to this question. And this is great. You're on the show because now you can just tell people what you've discovered.
Awesome. So yeah, I kind of answered the question in 3 parts. The first one is the Wicked Witch a person? So that's going to be important.
Excuse me. Witches are people just because
Yes.
they're witches.
I agree. Well,
Adam,
that's the thing.
Adam, back away slowly, Adam.
Well, that's where I was going with it. Is she's a sentient being, and likely you'd make the same arguments from the Dred Scott case, which is a famous case about slavery, and establishing whether certain groups were people, and so you'd make the same argument about a witch in this case if they weren't just a human being that practices witchcraft. So the question next is, does Dorothy kill the Wicked Witch of the East? Consummately, no. She doesn't control the house in any way, unlike, say, a car. She doesn't have any control over the storm. She doesn't really wish the thing to happen. It just kind of happens. Glinda might be actually more liable if she caused the storm. We're not really sure how it happens. But she doesn't even know the witch is there until she gets out of the house, so she would have the defense of involuntariness because she didn't involuntarily act to kill the witch.
Oh, there's a witch.
That brings us to the third question I answered, which is, did she kill the Wicked Witch of the West? So again, we have to look at the word kill because I wasn't sure if they meant just literally kill as in cause the death of, because yes, she causes the death of the Wicked Witch of the West. But does she murder the Wicked Witch of the West? So, no, she commits manslaughter maybe, but she has an argument for self-defense because she is throwing a bucket of water, which is, in theory, not a thing that would kill a normal person, in defense of herself as she's being attacked to get her slippers. If they don't have self-defense, she could be charged with manslaughter. That would be different than murder because she didn't intend to kill her.
Adam, this is all very good. However, you missed one very important thing that I'd like to point out to you right now. This is the cross-examination.
Oh, okay.
The thing you missed, the important thing you missed here is that this takes place in Oz.
Mm-hmm.
A dimension that by all accounts, from all the evidence I can find, does not seem to have any kind of functioning legal system. So it may be a moot point. She may just be off the hook completely.
I mean, in theory, if she committed a murder and then she fled back to Kansas, they could prosecute her in Kansas for the murder that occurred in Oz. But let's say they applied the Oz legal system.
Is there an extradition treaty between these two places? That's what's important, I think.
Probably not, but you can still prosecute someone in the other area. You just don't send them back to Oz. Although, maybe if she does the manslaughter, she ends up in Oz. Hey, it's a joke about prisons.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Boy.
This is a real mind F here. All right, Casey, what do we got on Twitter?
All right, Twitter, you got questions, we have answers. Hit us up with the hashtag AskBGH.
Wait, isn't that like an insurance thing or something? You got questions, we got answers, right?
All right, our first one up, guys, from JHAR0. Anyone else spend the first half of the movie wondering if he takes invisible dumps?
Well, no, dude, he's got a suit on.
No, he's got a suit on, so I would hope that he doesn't take a
no,
dump in
but
that.
if he shit it,
in the attic for a few days, right?
If he shit the suit, it would be invisible until it comes out.
Yeah.
You might be able to smell him coming though, which would be a tactical problem.
Not with all that cologne. Maybe that's why he was wearing so much cologne.
Oh my god.
We figured
I like
out.
it.
It is
just
a good
walking around in a man-sized colostomy bag.
It is a good question. Like, was he just waiting? Was he just like waiting for everyone to leave the house so that he could sneak downstairs and hurriedly to pull this weird rubbery suit off so he could take a dump and then quickly get it back on?
Has he been sweating in it? Is it moisture wicking?
Was he leaving and going home? If so, was he walking home? Because it doesn't seem like a distance you could walk.
No, so
We could have parked on another block.
Yeah, the suit actually has the butt flap thing, like from cartoons.
But it's not high tech. It's not high tech.
quick-
It's just the snaps.
Yeah, it's actually just
thought
Velcro.
that-
You just see nothing. You see a invisible person and just two snaps going like this as it walks.
And then just an ass, just like an ass up here.
Oh my god.
Sorry, Cece.
All right. We have
We're
one.
adults.
The next one to hear from is at Chris Alionot. We kind of covered this in the show, but just in case, we can reiterate here. Prior to this one, which looks awesome, what is everyone's favorite take on the Invisible Man? Lon Chaney, Chevy Chase, Kevin Bacon's Wiener?
Honestly, I guess it's Hollow Man. I don't The weird thing about
Yeah,
Hollow
I
Man
guess
is
it's
that
Kevin Bacon's wiener.
the weird thing about Hollow Man is he's kind of the main character, but he immediately just starts doing awful shit. So it's like it's a weird. It's very 90s.
It's like
Yeah.
he's in a Paul Verhoeven movie.
Is that who directed that?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was 2000, 2001, or I'm gonna look it up.
It was as soon as they knew how to use CGI just well enough to put
Yeah.
in everything.
It was 2000, which is exactly the era you're describing, Andy.
This next one would be better if we had Schnars here, him doing film classes and such. But at Codiolo asks, challenge, can you insert the Wilhelm scream into a horror movie naturally, and which one would you choose?
I mean, isn't the Wilhelm scream in literally every horror movie?
Damn near.
Here's an interesting
least I thought it
Wilhelm
was.
scream fact. For years, there is a sound that I thought was a Wilhelm scream that I actually later discovered is called the Howie scream. And the origin of this is actually unclear, but the rumor or like the conjecture is that it actually is a clip of the NFL's Howie Long screaming from some like B movie he was in the 90s. You go and look up the Howie scream, you 1000% recognize it. And it's for years what I thought the Wilhelm scream was.
Nice.
I would say the only thing you could do is like maybe a Nightmare on Elm Street scenario where like Freddy has put somebody into a dream that's like an old World War II movie.
Sorry, I'm looking up the Howie scream so I can play it in my mic.
Alrighty, next one up we have from our friend Mando at Black Metal Jesus. What is the most overrated band ever, and why is it Led Zeppelin?
Oh, hateful. It's the Beatles.
It is the Beatles.
Oh,
Most
CC's right.
overrated.
I think I would put Kiss in that group too. Basically, all those rock groups our parents like. All right, guys, ready?
Yeah.
Oh.
Could you guys actually hear that? That's the Howie
Yeah.
scream.
I know that as the Ah Real Monsters scream.
Yep.
So what's interesting about the Howie scream is like it already sounds really processed, and you hear it a lot of times with like people like monsters dying and stuff. If you go back and listen to the original Wilhelm scream was like from the very early talkie days, I believe, and it's like very
The talkies.
it's very dry. It's like unprocessed. Like you only hear Wilhelm screams in movies very manipulated so that they sound sort of like different things.
alrighty. Our friend at Me Corazon Me More. What are y'all stocking up on for the end of times?
Diapers, because you don't want to run out of those for your children.
That
I'm
good
just
idea.
eating pizza all the time while I still can.
Yeah. But did you
I'm
wash
just
your
gonna get
hands first?
stocky and hope that I'm fine.
Yeah.
Hope that you're just
I'm
hardy
good.
hardy enough to get through it.
I figure I'm good for at least a month's worth of starvation, right?
Yeah.
I've had like way too many conversations in my office where everybody's like, "Have you heard that the Lysol's gone up to this much money?" And I'm like, "I don't care. Wash your hands like a regular person."
It's funny. My work bought a bunch of Lysol, and I just find it funny because like it seems so old timey and like aggressive to me. Like it's I feel like it's the kind of shit that's definitely poisoning you. So people just kind of stopped using it. And now suddenly it's everywhere.
It was originally marketed as a douche product,
I think I actually knew that. Yeah.
which is horrific.
Yeah.
So one of the people I saw this with is a friend of mine he's an RN. He used to work in like emergency rooms and ICUs, and we were talking about this. And his immediate response to all of us was, "Do you know how many people died of the flu last year?"
The flu
Just
is
wash
much
your hands.
is
Yeah.
a lot scarier.
Yeah.
My- I was gonna say my brother works in the emergency room, and every day he comes home and he's like, "Shh, I don't want to hear any of it." He was like, "You have no understanding of anything else, and this is absurd."
That seems like a mean thing for your brother to say to you, Cece.
Have you met my brother? Have you met me? What do you think my brother's like?
Whatever,
He
Cece.
also collects cicadas.
Yeah.
Funny story. So basically the whole reason I stopped collecting cicada skins for a while is because we were fighting over the giant jar of cicada skins, and we fell on the steps, and I smashed the jar, and it cut off, like it almost cut my thumb off. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
Yikes.
Oh my god.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, on that
cool
note,
story.
we have our friend at Skizbot asks, what if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home.
You know, you're really wasting that tweet there on a day when Joe isn't here.
I was about to say.
I know.
That is a hot jam, though.
Just put a pin in that. We'll read it next time.
Yeah, let's pretend we didn't read it.
Another good friend of BGH at Lycanthropology. What movie would benefit most from having someone just be completely invisible, i.e., Jurassic Park with an invisible T-Rex?
I mean, anything with Kevin Spacey in it?
I was going to say Manchester by the Sea, and you beat me to my tongue.
All right. Any more thoughts?
No.
Got one last tweet here, and again, it's our friend at Codiola, a longtime listener. Besides Invisible Man, what Universal monster would be the worst boyfriend?
Ooh.
Huh. Dracula, because he always has, like, concubines, right? Like, you're not going to be the only one.
Depends if you're in an
Okay,
open
so-
relationship.
I was about to say maybe you should just only be with him if you want to be in an open relationship. I would say Frankenstein because he's not a very good boyfriend, and obviously from the Bride of Frankenstein, like there's there's a lot of issues there.
CC, I need.
What about the Frankenstein from Young Frankenstein?
What about the Frankenstein? What about from Monster Squad? He was actually a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
Well, so how, like, you got to specify which Frankenstein? I don't think it works that way.
Yeah. I would go with the Wolfman because the shedding. It's
Yeah.
got to be bad, right?
And you never know when he's going to come home in a bad mood. It's
Yeah.
just...
Yes,
Is
you
it-
do. Do you not know the phases of the moon?
Is he
there's
potty trained?
literally- They have movies about this. He just chains himself up one night a month. It's okay.
The
Is he house
alleged
trained?
stages of the moon.
Lord.
We all agreed, though, the best boyfriend is Gilman / Creature from the Black Lagoon, though. There was a whole documentary.
Especially if you're Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah,
I was about to say, yeah.
Fish.
Shape of Water told me Gilman fucks and he's nice.
Yeah.
And that's it for tweets.
Love it. All right, guys. Next week, we're actually doing a super special staff pick. We have not picked what that movie is yet. Check out Twitter, twitter.com/bghorror, or Facebook or Instagram, and Joe will get that out as soon as we know. But it's going to be a video pick. No, a little break from the theater. So, yeah. Don't forget to check out bloodygoodhorror.com, all that awesome stuff Andy just mentioned. Also, don't forget we're on Patreon, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You can get a live stream of the show. You can get back episodes. You can get access to our Slack community. We've actually had a bunch of new people in the last 2 or 3 weeks join in on Slack, which is always a nice thing to say. So, yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Farewell.
Adios.
Bye-bye.